Hello and welcome to BigJollyPolitics.com and our 2014 Republican primary candidate interviews. I'm David Jennings. Today I'll be talking to Mayor John Manlove. Mayor Manlove is running for Congress in District 36, which is my home district. The uniqueness of the district lies in its diversity. It is such a large geographical area that you have a mix of urban, suburban, and rural areas. The business runs the gamut from the space industry to petrochemical to lumber to ranching to farming to seafood. Throw in a little sport fishing on the bay in Toledo Bend, you begin to get an idea of just how diverse this district is. Good to have you on BigJollyPolitics.com, Mayor. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing fine. The weather's finally gotten decent for this southern part of the country.
Yeah, I'm about tired of the cold myself. At least the sun's out a little bit, huh?
That's right. The sun is out. It's warming up a bit, and now it's feeling good. My blood's too thick for this cold weather.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, well, let's just start out, and we'll take a few minutes to introduce yourself and just tell our viewers a little bit about you, where you grew up, what schools you went to, married, children, occupation. I see that guitar in the background. You might want to talk about that a little bit. So, just who are you, and introduce yourself.
Well, that's a subject I know pretty well, at least. I shouldn't get lost. But I was actually born and raised here. Was actually the last baby born in Houston, Texas, in 1952, December the 31st. And back in 1952, you only had a couple of options of where you'd be born, either St. Joseph or Herman. I was at St. Joseph. So I'm a true product of the channel and refinery industry, and being raised here around the bios and the channel, you develop a good solid work ethic. And so it became quite clear to me early on that, hard work and solid Christian values is what built this country, as opposed to what we're seeing a lot of, which is apologies and entitlements. But yeah, I was born here, went to school here. My dad was a World War II veteran, and so I went to Deedy, of all places, Deedy Junior High School, and from there I went to Milby. Deedy was a rough school. I think anybody from this area knows that was a pretty rough place. But that is where I met Gina, my wife. We became sweethearts when I was 16. She was 13, so we went through school together. And while I was in school, my father started a little business in our garage there in Meadowbrook. And it was a little printing company. So when I was 9 or so, I'd help my dad with the printing business. And at the same time, I picked up the guitar. Me and my brother started a band. We were the original garage band back in those days. So, and it came in quite handy. I guess I always knew I could make a living. If all things failed, I could pick up my guitar. So we did. We started a band, and I was a professional musician for some 30 years, and ended up putting myself to the University of Houston as a professional musician. And after I accumulated enough hours, became a substitute school teacher, of all places, at Deedy.
Right back, huh?
I went right back, and I didn't realize at the time when I went down to the Houston Independent School District and told them I wanted to substitute teach, and they asked, "Where would you like?" I said, "Deedy," and they were absolutely amazed. They said, "You mean you want to go to Deedy?" So I had as much substitute teaching as opportunities as I wanted, which was a nice little income. And so I graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in political science. Right after graduation from college, my father died. So I took over the little business that he had in our little broken down one-car garage, and from there built it to one of the largest advertising agencies in Houston. Of course, that was a period of some 30 years. Married my wife, Gina. We've been married 37 years, have 2 children, and now I have 2 grandsons and another one on the way. So life is good. And, that's kind of a nutshell. There was a little interlude I had in there, as you may well know, calling me mayor. I was the mayor of the city of Pasadena for 2 terms. I was a council member 4 terms before that. But as mayor, had the opportunity to bring my business experience to city government, and we balanced the budget, produced a surplus, reduced crime almost 24%, and I froze taxes on the seniors and actually eliminated the tax department. Now, these are practical things that I would like to take to Washington D.C. as your congressman.
Boy, I wish you could go to Washington, D.C. and eliminate that tax department. That would be pretty awesome, Mayor.
It has gotten pretty, it's become a political tool, which is so dangerous. I never thought we would see things like this happening in our country in my lifetime.
I don't think anyone could have foreseen that. It's just wow. Interesting. A political science degree, huh?
That's right.
A musician and a political science degree and a businessman and a mayor. How about that? So you've already mentioned that you've held those elected positions, but what drew you to politics? What makes a musician go and get a political science degree, and what's a pull?
Well, obviously, I liked politics, or I wouldn't have gotten a degree in political science. But when I turned 18, uh, when I first able to vote, I Richard Nixon was running for office, and I worked at the polls. I got engaged fairly early on, and it was just I guess being a musician to some degree, you're out in the public and you're dealing with public. It is a interesting relationship there. I'm also an ordained minister and have been a part-time missionary where I went to Latin America for several weeks at a time, which also, it starts building into you a social responsibility that the best gifts in life are the ones you give away. So I felt like, I had something to offer the community, and that's how I first got involved with City Council at the City of Pasadena.
I grew up in Pasadena, so I'm very, very, very familiar with the area. Were you in the thing when John Ray was around, or Isabel that period of time?
Boy, you do know your Pasadena history.
Sure, I do.
It's interesting, David. When I ran for mayor, I was the first new mayor in like nearly 30 years.
Right.
It had been we have term limits. In other words, you can run 2 terms, and if you set out, you can run again. Well, John Ray Harrison would run, and then Johnny Isbell would run, and then they would fight each other. And I mean, they fought each other like the Hatfields and McCoys. So they were back and forth for 30 years. I mean, it was one or the two. And then when I ran, it was a opportunity for a new mayor. And actually, they ran against me when I ran. But I ran, and we had 5 people in the race, and one was 64% of the vote. The city was really ready for a new vision
Wow.
for the city. And then I ran the second time and won pretty overwhelmingly as well.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that. Uh, and folks, I'm sorry to get off the track here just a little bit, but it does have to do with how Mr. Manlove would handle the actual position. You had to be considered a complete outsider, and so how did you get all this done?
Well, that's a good question. What I did is I put in an excellent staff. There had been a lot of people there that had been there for a number of years, and I recruited the best and the brightest to bring in. And so, it wasn't a one-man job, but I brought in some really good talent. We really focused on the things that were important in Pasadena, rebuilding the infrastructure, which was really gotten in bad shape at that time, and actually sold bonds. It was the first time in a very long time that the city had sold bonds without raising the tax rate. But this is where you saw the beginning of the boom of Pasadena. The roads we built and we put in place attracted so much business that the tax revenue went up dramatically because we just improved the economy.
Well,
So,
like I said, as growing up in Pasadena, I just got to tell the folks here that that's a heck of an accomplishment in that arena. So let's move on to the race you're in now.
okay, sure.
Um, as I mentioned in the intro, CD36 is very, very diverse. Are there any issues that you think a voter in Deep East Texas, Jasper, Woodville, the Lumberton, and one in somebody down in South Clear Lake, the NASA area, what can those voters agree on?
Well, that's interesting. It is a diverse economy, but the people are very homogenous. When you look across this district, it's a lot of hard working, I guess for lack of a better word, blue collar folks, which they do agree on the fundamentals that hard work should still pay off. A person should be self-reliant. That you work hard and you get to pay for the day. I think that is pretty much universal across this district. Even though they may work in different environments, in Pasadena, a lot of the people work in the chemical plants, and up in Lumberton, they're working in lumber plants and such as that. But I do know this: when I was in church here in active in Memorial Baptist here, I would go to Sagemont now. You never planned an event when hunting season opened because there was few men as it was there because they were going hunting. And I think that is a common value around this whole district. The things that are important is we've got to get the debt under control in our country. We've got to stop this spending money we don't have. We've got to do something with Obamacare. I mean, it is literally destroying our country from the inside out. We've got to do something about the taxes. We have a tax code now that is 74,000 pages long. All that is an excuse to find something wrong with somebody. When you got 74,000 pages, there is something you can find that somebody did wrong. We need a tax code that would fit on one page. So
I agree.
I think this is a common across the district.
Okay, well, what about the district itself? Those issues you just mentioned were, of course, national issues, although they certainly affect every individual in the district. But what about the challenges and the issues within the district itself? The ports, the hunting. What do you see as the biggest issues?
Well, the biggest, I call them hometown issues for this district, and especially here locally where we are, is the Biggert Waters fiasco, for lack of a better word, where they're changing the flood maps and then they're trying to make everybody comply with these flood maps, which is going to quadruple flood insurance in this area. The long-term effects of that will just absolutely devastate our local economy. They say, well, yeah, well, we'll grandfather. Well, grandfather, it only means that when you try to sell your house or your business, at the closing table, someone's going to find out that their insurance has gone through the roof and they don't close the deal. That is a number one issue. Delaying it is not an answer. We have to stop it. Now, the ultimate solution to all of this is to build the Ike Dike. The Ike Dike solves the flooding issues 100%. When you have a FEMA-approved flood protection option like the Ike Dike, flood insurance is no longer even needed. In Netherlands, they don't have flood insurance, and they've been doing this technology for a long time. The Ike Dike protects the entire Galveston Bay area. The Centennial Gate that's being talked about only protects the Houston Ship Channel and floods everybody else. So that's a bad idea. I'm a full supporter of the Ike Dike, which is a federal issue. New Orleans, with a population of about 500,000, they received $15 billion to build a dike system around a city that was below sea level. The Ike Dike, approximately $5 billion, and we have received zero. It's time to bring that money home. Another issue on the local is the harbor maintenance funds. The Port of Houston sends $123 million a year to the Fed government. They skim off 60 to 40% of that for their own use, and we only get 23 million back. We need to get those funds back here so we can deepen the channel. Same thing with transportation. We're a donor state. We're sending more money than we're getting back. These are other local issues that we really need to get under control. And then regulations. We have been under attack from the federal government for our oil and gas industry, which is a enormous producer of jobs. So those are some of the local things that I would point to.
Okay. Well, you're running obviously against a very large field of candidates. I think you have a dozen of you total in the race, and so tell us what separates you from those others. Some of those others are pretty accomplished. Some of them don't live in the district, but the Constitution doesn't require that. So what separates you? Why would somebody say, okay, this one guy, he stands out?
Well, one of the and there's a few others in the race, but I'm one of the few that's actually a businessman that have signed both sides of the paycheck, as they say. Built a business from the ground up. Those are valuable experiences. I'm also a man of faith, so I'll take my faith with me. I'm a businessman. I'm a man of faith, And I am the only one that I could say in this race that has a proven track record of taking actually the largest city in the district. Pasadena is 150,000 people, where I actually have balanced the budget, produced a surplus, and actually abolished the tax department. So, a proven track record on that respect, I think, is important.
Okay. Now you just mentioned something I don't think people realize. Pasadena is a fairly large city. We don't I don't think Pasadena gets the credit it necessarily should. But as the mayor of that large city, and then you're going out into these very small cities in the rural areas, and it's Polk County up in that area. How have you been received?
Extremely well, because Pasadena is a large city, but it's got that the same very similar environment as these cities. They just don't have the same population, but they're very, very similar to Pasadena. Pasadena has, it's been said, the largest volunteer fire department in the nation. Well, most of these small cities have volunteer fire departments. And I really understand all of those issues on a local level that being a mayor really brings.
Okay, so you feel comfortable because a lot of people they want to focus on the Harris County portion of this vote, and that didn't work out too well for the last guy that tried that, and we ended up with a different kind of congressman, let's say. So you're comfortable focusing on those areas as well.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, very, very comfortable in those areas.
Okay. Well, why don't if somebody wants to get a hold of your campaign, volunteer, learn more, contribute money, maybe, who knows? Well, how would they get in touch with you? You have a website, Facebook, that kind of stuff.
We do. The website is johnmanloveforcongress.com. Pretty simple. And then our Facebook page is John Manlove it's facebook.com/ John Manlove for Congress.
Okay. Well, folks, that's a wrap for today, and thank you so much, Mayor, for joining us, and best wishes on your race. And guys, stay tuned. We're going to have more of these interviews. I think today's interview went very well, and you heard a very impressive candidate. Thanks a lot, Mayor.
Thank you.
You take care.
Thanks, David.